How long are you going to play that? Did you forget the video you were supposed to make? Part 2 already ended, and part 3 of the final season, final conclusion, for real this time guys, was announced, while you keep dying to the same boss. Just a few more days, and I'll make the video. Hey, what's your name? Guys, I think her name is Melina. Okay, this is it. This is it! Ah! Fuck!
A few minutes later.
Well, good luck beating this one at the Game Awards, Nintendo.
開発にもう少しお時間をいただきたく、発売を2023年したいと思います。
Can you start making the video now for fuck's sake?
最初はあるのかなって思ってたんですけど、最近はやっぱりやれなかった。最初は全くその物語のためのこういう性格というつもりで書いてたんですけど、実はそのあまり見たくなかった自分の内面だったのかなっていう感じもしてきましたね。
This right here is why the ending failed. This is why we can't have nice things. Like for example, Eren completing his genocide and wiping everyone out, then going back to fuck Flock on Paradise, finally giving confirmation that he was the uncle of Sora's child. Of course, another Jaeger is one that shot Eren to win. Why am I not surprised? I'm sorry, Twitter. How could I forget? This was always a story about Mikasa from Eren's POV, narrated by Army. Silly me, wanting this minor character to win. But now, let's get to the serious stuff. What is this part of Isayama that Eren represents and that he's so ashamed of? For that, we need to understand Eren's nature and what he really wants. And I assure you, this is not going to take an hour. Chapter 130 gives us a clear and direct answer. The correct translation of this page follows like this. Even if everything was decided from the beginning, everything I wanted, everything is ahead. Eren starts by saying he realizes the contradiction between his desire for freedom and the fact he knows the future and follows the path that was already decided for him. But that doesn't matter. Why? Because what he saw in the future, the rumbling and everything else, it was all what he wanted and desired. He's not a slave to destiny because Eren himself in the future created that fate. It was always the will of his selfish nature, seeking out freedom. But unlike what some may say, this very desire for freedom, this nature of his, is precisely why the ending fails. It feels like a lie to the reader by suddenly making him betray his main motivation.
ただし、自分で自分の背中を押した奴の見る地獄は別だ。その地獄の先にある何かを見ている。それは希望かもしれないし、さらなる地獄かもしれない。それは進み続けた者にしかわからない。
To put it simply, Eren is free, which means he chooses to be a selfish asshole who puts his own freedom above the freedom of others. Yes, don't let this dude's abs make you forget that he literally wants to mass murder innocent people. And yet, despite all that, we are drawn to him. Most people want to see him succeed, no matter how morally wrong it is. Why, you may ask? This interview from 2016 holds the answer. Eren essentially sees the world around him grow more complex by the day. The idea of who is the enemy, the bad guy, who he should focus his hatred towards, continues to get more and more confusing, so instead of dealing with that fact, he isolates himself. If the world is always changing and new information always appearing, then he can't trust the status quo. So he does the only thing a child can do, and tries hardest to not change alongside the world around him. That is Eren's mindset. It's why he's complex but also very simple, why he never changed and his goals always stay the same. Freedom! The only thing that truly changed was the context surrounding him, who his enemy was.
地下室にあったものは何だ？希望だったのか？それとも絶望か？
When he came to learn what truly was holding him back, when he saw his future, that's when any innocence he might have had disappeared. It turned out that outside the walls was not freedom after all. Am I being too pretentious right now?
Nah, continue projecting your own feelings to everyone else. I'm sure they will agree. You literal mass murder apologist.
That's your mistake, Twitter. Because you see, off screen while we talked, my head's gotten all messed up. So just like that, I am not responsible for my own actions anymore. You can't blame me for choosing, for being forced to choose to be a mass murder apologist. Just misspoke there. Hope they don't notice. The ocean is then, as Isayama puts it, the end of adolescence. For all the characters, but especially Eren, or perhaps for all the characters aside from Eren. You see, turning into an adult and leaving both childhood and adolescence behind is about going to the world and taking full responsibility for your actions. It's to realize that you are just a small part of a world that doesn't care about you, in a world complex and always changing. Eren refuses to do that, so he just accepts the vision of the inevitable future, because the future he saw shows him a simple and sure way of achieving freedom and protecting Paradis. It's the easy way out. There are no risks with a full rumbling, like there is with the euthanasia plan or the 50-year plan. So, to conserve himself and his freedom, Eren is not forced by fate to choose the rumbling, he wants the rumbling. He welcomes it. Because it's the only way he won't be living inside walls. The only way to deal with a complex problem like racism and war in a simple way. Destroy everything that complicates the world, so it can be simple again, just like it was in his childhood.
Burn the Erd Tree to the ground and incinerate all that divides and distinguishes. May chaos take the world!
Are you by any chance the next inheritor of the Attack Titan?
エルディアに希望があるとしたら、イェーガー派が国の実権を握ることだ。スレマ、聞こえるぞ。でも、みんなそう思っているだろう。みんなエレン・イェーガーにエルディアを導いてもらいたいはずだ。
It's no surprise that most readers ended up cheering for Eren, even if they don't truly understand why. Past the obvious, fuck Marley, they suck and deserve to be destroyed. Our lives are all about going to an outside world that doesn't really care about us. This is especially true nowadays, without the technology connecting us to information on the entire world, forcing us to see how small we are in the grand scheme of things. If there is a war going on somewhere, you don't just go about your day without knowing about its horrors. No, the media and internet as a whole make sure you understand that innocent people are struggling and dying for the selfish decisions of world leaders. So yes, Eren's innate desire for simplicity and the freedom that can be found in that does appeal to the reader more than any other character in the story, even if his actions are terrible. And in the very end, he loses to the Alliance. Do you see the problem? No, because actually the Alliance is here to remind us of who we could be. Better people. That we need to mature and deal with the world as he is and try to change it for the better, instead of trying to destroy what we can't accept. We must leave behind our selfishness and find compromises with our enemies to create a more accepting place. Yeah, no thanks. We are then presented with the side and ideology of the villains. They are like your parents going home early just to find their son prepping a bunch of guns to massacre their school tomorrow. So you can't kill your entire class that bullies you and wants you dead just so you can achieve some freedom by not having to deal with their bullshit anymore. You're ruining your life with this obsession, instead of moving on with your life in a healthy way. Geez, thanks Buzzkiller, you must be fun at parties. With the exception that, instead of being the mature adults striking kids with the logic to teach them how the world actually works, the Alliance offers literally no practical alternative to the problems Eren and the Eldians face. So, what should I do instead of shooting every single one of them? I don't know, ask your teacher to make them stop or some shit. Mass murder is bad. And the funny part is that Isayama, he knows this. He knows this. The Alliance notices this fact not once, not twice, not 3 times, not even 4 times, but 5 fucking times. And if that wasn't enough, the extra pages straight up confirm Floch's fears and that the Alliance's idealism are wrong. So you know Isayama. You know you're writing bullshit. So what the fuck happened here, man? Maybe the Alliance is not supposed to be realistic or offer practical solutions, because there are none in the real world for problems such as racism and war. Instead, they are just another way of depicting naive and childish characters trying to fix the world with simple solutions. But instead of being self-centered like Eren, they are obsessed with selflessness, even if it ends up destroying their country in the end. The Alliance wins not because they are objectively the right and correct answer, but because they are what we should strive to be. Even if it's not humanly possible to forget our nature and putting our family and friends above strangers, which eventually leads to more conflict. Fuck, that's actually a good point. You see, despite what I said so far, I'm not really against an ending where Eren loses, or where he is proven wrong. Yes, in my personal opinion, no ending where the Alliance wins is capable of being more interesting than Eren completing his full genocide, and exploring alone the world he ravaged, the world he saw in Armin's book and destroyed by his own hands. Doomed, for most of his remaining days, to live an empty life, full of guilt. Until one day, he manages to find some new semblance of meaning, or penance, to keep going and making sure that everything he destroyed wasn't for nothing, that the world he destroyed would give birth to a new world, a world more free than the last one. See, I knew you were just a fascist edgelord. What's next? You want your mass murderer, Shad Eren, to go back to his Aryan hot wife after he kills the entire world? No, I don't want that. Eren cheating on Mikasa with a Barry character? I want Eren to give up so she can kill him and everyone can cry about how much of a good person he was deep down, for 10 years at least. No, that's totally not tonally deaf at all. Just accept this nonsense as a character being complex. After all, in real life, humans can also be utterly and completely insane and have dissociative personality disorder. Just like Eren, apparently. But fine, you want to give the win to the Alliance. I know not everyone is as much of an enjoyer of trauma porn as I am. I suppose you just can't end such a mainstream story by killing 90% of the main characters as well as the rest of humanity. The problem then becomes not of the message you're trying to give with this ending, but how you get there. How do you make Eren, who has the founding titan, which is essentially omnipotent, all-knowing, and can manipulate all the main characters who are Eldians, lose? Well, you don't. Chapter 133 lies to you. This here, it's all a lie. Eren doesn't fight. Not really. Isayama knew he made Eren too OP to lose, so instead of making the Alliance win by their own merits, he just retconned Eren to literally give up and not even try. Yes, I just used the word retconned. I know what you're thinking. Before you do a very smart and original comment in this video, take a deep breath and remember, I love this story. I just think the ending is bad. So hear me out while I explain myself. Eren has two motivations, his selfish and innate desire for freedom, but also his selfless desire to protect his friends. Any good writer, and Isayama is a good writer, will then look at those two motivations and find a way to put them at odds, and that's exactly what he does in the time skip. Now, Eren can no longer have both. His selfish desire can only be accomplished by committing genocide, something he learns to accept, something his friends would never stand by and let him do. So he has to make a choice, either his freedom or his friends. He can't have it both ways. And that's the whole idea of chapter 130. From the bird, who always symbolized freedom, flying to the light, leaving Eren's friends behind in the darkness, to him saying, I want them to live long, happy lives. Being followed by a panel of him receiving the news that Sasha, one of his friends, died, Isayama is telling us that Eren won't have it both ways. His dream lies across his friends' graves. His dream already killed Sasha and he kept moving forward regardless of that, later leading to Hanji getting killed off by the Rumbling. And then all the close calls that the main characters barely avoided thanks to the plot armor in the final battle. Eren made his choice. Of course, he's not going out of his way to kill them, that won't make sense, but he won't stop the Rumbling. And so, it stands to reason that he won't let himself be killed or stopped by anyone. Except, that's exactly what ends up happening.
なぜ赤くお前は何のために戦っている俺はもう終わりにしたい俺とお前のどこが同じなんだもう眠れ
Out of nowhere, Isayama decided that he wanted to have his cake and eat it too. So now, Eren sacrifices his selfishness and betrays his nature so Mikasa can kill him? And thanks to that, Ymir is free? And that's the reason he kept moving forward? All the while, not knowing if his friends would get out of this conflict alive? But he's still selfish because he would continue the rumbling even if he knew no one would stop him? And at the same time, he's fine with being stopped? What the fuck is this motivation? How can anyone sympathize or find this mess of a character interesting? How is Eren relatable at all after this? How can you relate with a character that is literally insane at this point and whose motivations don't follow any logical reason or emotional reason? A character who is incapable of making any choices and is sticking to it to the very end. Who wants everything to go both ways for him. A character who knows everything and essentially nothing at the same time. A character who is selfless to a fault, sacrificing himself and his freedom for his friends, but also selfish enough to kill millions of innocent children and babies. We went from a character that did horrible things for relatable reasons, who accepted who he was and accepted the future that he himself chose, thus making that future predestined and set in stone. We went from that character who took responsibility for his actions to this pathetic lack of agency, clearly made to justify Eren losing because Isayama wrote himself into a corner. This is not complex character writing. It's inconsistent, rushed, and dishonest character writing. Isayama himself went against his own philosophy as a writer and made Eren lie to himself, not in a psychological sense, but in a narrative sense. And again, Isayama knows he's writing bullshit. He is self-aware, unlike most of his readers. So Armin asks, did you really need to go that far? Was this all for our sake? No, it wasn't for your sake. If it was, he could have just fucking told Flock to make sure the flying boat was destroyed. And then the Alliance would have no choice but to let Eren complete his rumbling, while they are safe on Paradise from any harm of the Colossals. Thing is, none of Eren's actions in the time skip make any sense if you think he's doing it to protect anyone but himself and maybe Historia. Mikasa, the master simp, tries to justify his actions on Liberia, and Jill reminds her that the old Eren would never put her on the front lines, yet he did so anyway. Eren already made peace with the future he saw. In that future, he didn't know everything. He didn't know if his friends would live and die, but he knew that this future would lead him to the rumbling. What he always wanted. He was ready to pay the price. He was ready to kill Ranzi, an innocent child. He kept moving forward after Sasha died, and he kept moving forward after Hanji died. But suddenly, you are supposed to expect that no, in fact, he moved forward so he could free Ymir by dying. Excuse me, but not only is this bullshit, it had zero build-up and foreshadowing. Zero. This is so dumb for motivation that Isayama had to make Eren literally insane. Like I mean literally, so the reader could accept it. Armin, my head's gotten all messed up because of the Founding Titan. So we went from a compelling character who learns to understand and accepts his nature and his fate, the fate that he himself chose, not any god or person manipulating him. We went from this character to some confused mess of a character who doesn't even know what the hell he's doing and just kills his mother because it's fated to be like that. And that's the part where the very smart people come to say the deep stuff. You see, this is the genius of his character. Eren was never free. Eren is a slave to freedom. Very deep stuff, you know. Except, are you okay? First off, you do realize that if someone is a slave to freedom, they are still free, right? I can only assume people conflate the idea of happiness or contentment with freedom, which is wrong. Being happy or having peace of mind is not freedom. Freedom is not always a good or positive thing. It's the literal point of Eren's entire character and the rumbling. Eren doesn't need to achieve satisfaction or personal happiness to be free. He was free simply because he acted in the service of no one but himself and his desires. And those desires can be good or bad depending on the person or circumstances. What happened here at the end, however, is just a retcon, an ass-pull with no build-up to strip Eren of his agency last second, so the characters can give him a pity party. From Armin to Annie, they all cry for Eren, and this is all supposed to be justified and touching because he did it for his friends and he truly had no other choice but to follow the path chosen for him by Ymir. When before, in chapter 130, it was clearly stated that he followed the path his future self decided. His future self is not a different entity. It's still Eren. But this can be true while at the same time he gets his head messed up. You see, after Eren touches Ymir in chapter 122 and gets the full power of the Founder, his head gets messed up from all the time shenanigans happening at the same time, and he finally understands he has to die for Ymir to be free. That's the moment he compromises his...
Okay, when was any of that shown, good sir?
Off screen, but that's not a problem. His dialogue implies that.
So it's not a problem that the main motivation of the main character shifts entirely, thus changing the perspective we explore the theme of freedom off screen. But this is the kind of argument you will see from the "you simply don't understand the story" crowd in the fandom. Here are some other examples of mental gymnastics that people do to defend the ending. Why is Mikasa the one that frees Ymir? Well, first, she's a woman just like Ymir, and she, loves Eren, a man just like King Fritz is a man. And Eren doesn't reciprocate her feelings, I guess, just like King Fritz. So as you can see, Mikasa was clearly the one that would free Ymir. She was her parallel and juxtaposition from the beginning. You do realize multiple characters would fit this vague theme of having to learn to grow out of an abusive relationship, right? Zeke and Grisha, Historia and Rod Rise and her mother, who by the way has multiple parallels with Ymir since the Uprising arc. Hell, even Annie had the same arc with her father, choosing to keep fighting to save the world and do the right thing, despite the person she loves the most being dead as far as she knows. Why Mikasa is the most important one, the one that in 2000 years finally frees Ymir, but not all of those examples and many more that probably happened during millennia. She literally had no interactions with Ymir the entire story and only got a brief dialogue with her in the extra pages of the final chapter. Almost as if Isayama noticed how much of an ass-pull he did in the very last second. But we all know why it was Mikasa. She's the poster girl. She's one of the main characters. She barely had a presence in the story, but she had to do something, anything, in the ending. So Isayama just put her there, out of nowhere, even when Eren, the character who is the embodiment of freedom since the beginning, already freed Ymir in the paths to use the rumbling. In the end, that's what this story devolved into. A compromised piece of art focused on being as harmless as possible given the themes it was tackling, following market-tested approaches to storytelling that are certain to have mainstream appeal, such as mindless action more interested in looking cool than anything, where no main characters die even when at impossible odds. A cowardly ending that only bothered to be realistic in the extra pages, and even then had to make a big enough time skip for all the main characters the readers have grown to care for to die of old age, so that Paradise being destroyed can be as emotionally harmless as possible, and only serve to tell the message that humanity will never change, without the emotional impact this theme should have. Imagine if, instead of Sasha dying at the end of the Marley arc, it was just random nobodies, just red shirts dying. That's what Isayama tried to pull here in those extra pages, doing the bare minimum to get the point across, regardless of how weak emotionally the story had become. And then, in his last attempt to compromise on his views, Eren kills 80% of humanity instead of 100%. The ultimate betrayal of his nature, as leaving 20% of humanity alive doesn't help his selfish goal or his selfless one to protect his friends. It's a glorified version of the 50-year plan that clearly only buys time before the inevitable happens. All of this mess justified under the excuse that it was fated and necessary to happen for Ymir to free herself, a plot point that came out of nowhere in the last two chapters.
Okay, no ending is perfect, but nothing could have satisfied everyone.
You know what this feels like? Talking to a friend whose girlfriend cheats on him constantly. You keep telling them to let her go, to move on, to find someone else, but they just can't. They keep coming back. She's not perfect, but she loves me. I know that. No one is perfect. You always find a problem or two. If I open my mind and not be so possessive, I can focus on her qualities. Sunk cost fallacy 101. They already spent so much time and energy with this one person building a relationship that they can't see themselves with anyone else. They are scared that they will actually find someone better and notice they have wasted all this time lowering their standards for nothing. And no, I am not talking about my personal life here. For those people I say, be a man of culture and go read Welcome Back, Alice. No, seriously, read this shit. It's so batshit crazy, it's actually good. It's about this guy right here who has a crush in this girl, but she likes his friend more. Yeah, it's pretty basic stuff, but then his friend actually wants to bang him, not her. But wait, it gets better. Years later, he starts dressing as a girl, and the main character just can't help himself but let his bro suck him off. Always remember, bros before hoes. This is the kind of shit I read, so I'm sorry if I've been taking what I said so far seriously. It's honestly sad to see a story like Attack on Titan that embraced risks in its storytelling and character development, especially for a shonen, to devolve into this empty, void piece of media too scared to lose the mainstream appeal it managed to build. It's sad to see, as clear as day, Isayama compromising on his artistic views to pander to the fans. Even saying in public to be insecure in his writing until the very last chapter, looking on the internet to see the opinions of his readers more and more. And it's sad to see the same happening in the fandom, compromising to find something in the ending that isn't there. Good writing. There are good ideas, yes, but ideas alone do not make a good story. Truth is, no matter how many times I see people justifying things like Zeke dying to stop the rumbling, when it was established that Ymir didn't need royal blood after being freed by Eren, or Ymir loving King Fritz, or Historia suddenly being happy and married to the farmer, or Eren accepting a fate where he knows he will die in the end and be deprived of his freedom, it will never change the fact that this story could have been so much more. Did the ending ruin the entire story? No, definitely not. This is no Game of Thrones Season 8. Did it waste a lot of potential for no good reason? Yes. Yes, it did. I want to make clear that there are valid reasons to enjoy the ending. Not everyone is just coping that it's good. The extra pages are great, even if a last-ditch effort from Isayama who lacked backbone to make lasting consequences for the Alliance's idealism. No, actually, it was a civil war that destroyed Paradise, so it's the Jaeger's fault, not the Alliance. It's okay, man. I'm here to free you from the agony of the love you feel for Isayama. If you should take anything from this video at all, it's this. Regardless of Eren winning or losing, both of those outcomes should come from the merit of the characters involved, not by taking Eren's agency last second and making him a slave to Ymir's plan. And definitely not by making the Alliance win in a fight that was staged from the beginning and has no stakes. If Eren had to lose, make him fight until the very end, using everything he has at his disposal. And if Eren was supposed to win, then don't get scared of killing some main characters just because it will scare a few 100,000 sales for your manga. I know, easier said than done. That's it, bye. Oh wait, I forgot. Subscribe if you wanna hear my shit takes. I'm gonna make more videos, not only about Attack on Titan, but also other media that I enjoy.